Hi, and welcome to this tiny house tour. My name is Sean, and my wife's name is Sarah, and we live off the grid in a tiny home. So that's the tiny home right there. We do have the option of keeping the tiny home, or rather you do, on the land, pending a quick interview with the landowners. And I just wanted to show you guys the view because this is what you could potentially get. It's a beautiful view. This is Duncan on Vancouver Island. And we put the solar panels as far right as we could so that, again, you can get that massive view when you're inside of the tiny house. A little cloudy today, but it should clear up in a little bit. Today is April 1st, 2020, by the way. So let me show you the solar panels real quick. They're two 300-watt solar panels. They're pretty straightforward. They're on 4 pallets right there. And there's just 2 wires. You daisy chain them together. And I believe the term is parallel, but don't quote me on that, how they're hooked up. Right next to it, we also have satellite internet, and that is through XploreNet. It actually works pretty good for what it is. You get 100 gigabytes of what they call high-speed data, and then the rest is a little bit lower speed data, but we've been using Netflix on the lower speed, no problem right now. So it's not bad. It's essentially unlimited data in that respect. There's also a storage unit here that you're welcome to keep if you'd like. I forget the dimensions on it exactly. I think it's like 5 by 10, something like that. And also included in the price of the house is this generator. And I would say this generator charges both of our batteries within, depending on how much other power you're using too, I would say within about an hour, and of course depending on how depleted the batteries are too. You'll see that the skirting that we've done is temporary. We moved the house last season, and the idea was to do something a little less temporary, but in the meantime we actually decided to move back home. So that's why you're going to see like the stairs going up to the door. It's not 100% like how you'd probably want to keep the house. And again, we had a plan for a deck and a nice stairway up, but again, we changed our plan. So we don't see spending time and money on those things as benefiting us necessarily. So what you see on the back here is a couple things. You see the solar shed. I'm going to walk a little bit closer to that. And then to the left, you can see the propane. And actually right down from there, we have 2 other things to check out. We have our gray water runoff, and that runs out just to the dirt right there. And my wife Sarah's doing dishes right now, and that's kind of what it looks like when you're using a fair amount of water. It just runs right off. Now, of course, you could always put the runoff wherever you want to, and then we have black water runoff right there, just literally running into the dirt, and we find that works just fine. But again, you could put it anywhere you wanted to, into the trees or wherever. So let's talk about the propane for just a second, and then we'll talk about solar. The hookup for the propane is actually meant for a 100-pound tank. That's why that cable is a little bit on the short side. So that's a 30-pound tank hooked up there. And you'll notice again the temporariness of our whole setup here. Again, lots changed. So that's a 30-pound. There's another 30-pound tank there, and then 2 20-pound tanks. In the wintertime with heating, the propane is used for hot water, it's used for the stove, and it's used to heat the house. We find a 30-pound tank runs us about a week, and so we're refilling it every week or so. But if you had a 100-pound tank hooked up, that would run you, what's the math on that, almost a whole month, or if not a whole month, depending on your usage, of course. And then that just hooks up like a regular propane connection, and it's a regular propane tank just like you would use on a barbecue. And that's, I believe, a regulator right there and the hookup for the propane. Now the solar shed, let me open that real quick, is here, and you'll see that we have where the power lines are coming from, the solar panels hooked directly up into the system there. We bought this as a fully done system, so you can see the inverter, the charger, you can see an interrupt box right here, a disconnect that has switches for the fridge, the solar panel, the toilet, and the main inverter. So if you want to shut everything off, you'd shut off this, or you can shut off individual pieces there. Then you can see how much solar we're getting right now. This is a cloudy day right now. And those are the details. Now, underneath all this stuff here, by the way, this is our internet, and we just leave it in the solar shed, and it works just fine. So we have the modem right here, and we have a wireless router right there. And then within the box are 2 batteries. And I believe they're called Rolls-Royce batteries. I'm going to get all the specs for you guys, of course. Now, you'll see the propane line on the left there, and then we had to get a little creative with the solar, meaning where the lines are running from the solar panels. And what we did was we just kind of cut a hole in the door right there. It's a, the door is, what am I trying to say? Insulated. And so we put a little bit more insulation in there, of course, to protect the wires so there's no tearing. And this is where a couple things happen. The lines for the solar panels come in through there. There's the line that you can see running to the generator. That's right there. And then, of course, the line for this one right here for the cable modem is all running in there. So pretty creative solution. And when you live off the grid, you really have to get creative. And that's something that we've learned. House is skirted all the way around, of course. What you see here is one of the cranks for one of the built-in, what do you call it, jacks. So there's 4 built-in jacks to the house to jack it up, and then there's 2 extra that we added underneath the house just for some added support. Of course, you could add more of those if you'd like. And then this is the back side of the house with a nice round window and the kitchen window right there to the left, and then an exhaust port above the stove that you can see right there too. The round window is looking out of the shower, so we really like that because it looks right into the forest, and on a nice day that's a nice view. So let's walk around to the front side, and apologies, there's some garbage we haven't cleaned up there. Living off grid, you know. This is part of Sarah's gardening right there. To the left you can see an exhaust port. That's for the compost toilet that we have, and that power switch you saw in the solar shed that you can turn on and off, that's a fan that's running all the time. This is where we put our compost for our toilet compost, and then this is a little bit more gardening that Sarah's done. A nice job so far. So back here we can talk about the water tanks. We currently have these 2 round water tanks hooked up, so it's a total of 100 gallons. And you can see where we collect the water right from the roof. It's running right into that first barrel right there. And then actually they're both connected, and then they both run in, and I hope you like my insulation job there. That's just so nothing freezes, so that you can use the water year round, no matter what the temperature is outside. And you can see a little bit of a crack in the cement there, and that's just because we didn't fully level the ground before we put the slab down. So, of course, super easy to just jack that one side up, or relieve the pressure rather, and flatten out that surface and then put another slab right there. We have about 8 extra slabs, and that will make sure that the slab doesn't crack, but it's totally safe. So the water is running into, you can see it running into the water pump, and that's a 160 PSI pump that we've down regulated into 40 PSI. The regulator you can use, I believe, between 40 and 120 PSI, but the lower the better, and it seems to be good enough for us. Now we have a couple big tanks here. I believe they're 225 gallons each, but I'll verify that with my wife. We have wrapped them in black plastic so that they don't grow mold. The only thing we haven't done yet is just to hook them up to our system, because in the winter we want to make sure everything is wrapped in some kind of an insulation so it doesn't freeze. But it's pretty simple. All you have to do is turn that, looks like about a 1.5 inch to a 2 inch connection, into a regular garden hose connection, either 5/8 or 3/4. I forget the exact one that I use, but I'm happy to verify that. Okay, and then you can see a little bit more of the water system here. That's our downspout. And then, of course, running along the top of the roof is our collection. And it works pretty well. We've got it a lot more efficient than it used to be, which is really nice. So essentially any rainy day will totally fill the 100 gallons. It's pretty wild. All right, so why don't we walk inside, and you're gonna meet our dog Bella, who's a blind Shiba Inu. Hi, Bella. And you can see the Bat Cave in the background because she looks like Batman from behind. So I'm gonna let her out. Go ahead. So that's her little Bat Cave, literally. And just to the right of the Bat Cave, you have our heater. And this is a propane heater. And then we have, always a good idea, fire extinguisher next to something that could potentially catch on fire. Now that I think about it, maybe we should move it a little bit further away, because if it's on fire, you probably don't want to reach in there to grab that fire extinguisher. We have a shoe caddy area right there. And then we've added a nice little piece, well, I think it's a nice little piece, for keys, and a nice little shelf right here beneath the switches, so that you can walk inside, you put your keys, there's Bella's stuff right there, and you put your wallet and your glasses, and there you go. Now behind here is the, what do you call that? The breaker box, right? And let me just open it real quick. And you can see the breakers, they're all labeled right there. This was all of the work, the build of the house, all the electrical, all the plumbing, all the propane, all the solar installation. It was all done professionally. So none of this was done piecemeal by a non-professional. My dad is a general contractor, but I just didn't feel comfortable doing it because it's a place that you live in and you want it to last forever, right? So this is just kind of the roof, or the top part rather. And the thing that I really like about the inside of the house is that when you walk into it, and by the way, there's no like weird lens on this camera, this is just my phone, so I'm not trying to distort how big or how small the tiny home is. I can't stand when you see those photos of tiny houses. They have these lenses that make it look like it's a huge place. In reality, this is what it looks like. This is a 10 by 20. And essentially what you get when you get the 10-foot wide instead of the 8.5 is you get the whole length of this area with the steps. So you gain that entire width right there. And we stayed in a tiny home that was 8.5 foot wide, and honestly, it wasn't wide enough. It felt a little claustrophobic. So let me talk a little bit more about, there's a window right here. It's massive. Let me back up a little bit and you can see out that window. Of course, then you can see out the front windows, and that's where you catch the beautiful view. And this is really why we wanted to move to this spot. We were at a different spot, but man, isn't this cool? This is what originally attracted us to this, living on this space actually, is wanting to be living in this spot. So if I move back around this way, we have a little sitting area right here that you can eat at or you can hang out at. And in fact, there's a leaf that comes up as well. And I'm just holding it by hand, but you can see the piano hinge right down there. There's a piece of wood that kicks out and it holds it up. So we're told it's about 8 feet worth of counter space, which is actually a lot bigger than a typical kitchen, which is nice. We cook a lot for ourselves, and so we figured that we'd want as much of that as possible. The ceiling is about 12 feet high, and it's pretty damn big. That's a ceiling fan that we installed after the fact. Don't mind, sorry about the stuff in the corner. We're running a business. We make seasonings, and my wife started this business, and now we're both doing it full time, so it's pretty cool. But just behind there in the corner, there's a switch to turn the fan on. And so we have a dehumidifier, of course, making sure that there's no humidity in the house, or as little as possible. But I'm zooming in over here because you can see that a lot of the plugs, in fact, most of the plugs except for 2, all have USB ports built into them because we're always charging things, and hey, we're millennials. What are you gonna do, huh? So this is the kitchen. We have a couple extra stools if you'd like to keep them. Of course, the other stools do come with the house as well. There's a lot of storage. Let me just go back over here for just a second. There's Bella's storage area. There's another storage area over here where I'm keeping some of my recording equipment. There's more storage even still over here, 2 spaces, and then even a third, and then over to the right you can even see that there's even more storage right there. So we're not even using all the storage. But again, here's the kitchen, and just through that area, that's the bathroom, by the way. So let me give you a better view of the kitchen here. And there we go. So sorry for how zoomed in it is. Again, it's just my phone. I'm trying to give you guys a real accurate view of the space. And then you have a bunch of cabinets, a ton of cabinets, a ton of storage, all through the corner there. And then around here we have even more storage. I'll just open this up real quick. So you can see this is where we have basically our pantry and just a ton of jars, and that's kind of what we were going for, trying to reduce waste and whatnot. So we have, as you can see, again, not the cleanest, but we have more storage. By the way, that's part of the wheel well back there that you can see, and we put some foam in there to help combat the moisture, because in any tiny home that is very important to combat moisture. This is our closet, and it goes all the way down. And again, this is one of the really nice things about having a 10-foot wide tiny home. There's even more storage over there, and more storage right there. So as you can see, the builder was really cool. They built in a bunch of storage spots for us, and then we like to use these little pullouts. This is one for our dog, and we keep a bunch of stuff in there. And then these are our own personal ones. I don't know if you guys can see, but even further behind, there's even more storage back there. We're not even using all of it. I know, it's crazy, right? Ton of storage. Another pantry area right here. It's a bunch of food. It's super deep. It's like a foot and a half deep. Bunch of pullouts. So meaning these pull out, and you can store things in them. Super convenient. Right. Boom. More storage down there. More storage down here. Right. And where we keep all of our reusable, again, try to be as low waste as possible. Reusable containers. Here's the fridge, and just above the fridge you see even more storage and the inverter control unit. Let me just turn that on and off so you guys can see it. It's currently at 12.2 volts. Again, today's a little cloudy. And it's that easy. You just press and hold. Everything comes back on as you had it, so the lights will turn back on. Boom. Simple. I don't have the exact cubic feet on the fridge, but that's the top part is the freezer. And I'll definitely follow up on that info if you guys want with the exact specs. And then that's the fridge. It's plenty big for our purposes, and has more than enough space, so we're pretty happy with that. Over here we have the propane stove. So 4-burner situation there, and a nice little, I guess you would call it a backsplash. That's metal, just in case something is smoking, you know. And then we have the range hood right there, and then even more storage above here. And it's hard to see, but there is back there an exhaust port. There you go. And we saw where that comes out on the outside, the back side of the house. There's 2 different settings, high and low, and then a light for the hood range. And then you have your controls for the stove right there. You have the inside of the oven. Again, plenty big for our purposes. You can do a full pizza in there if you wanted. You can do casseroles, etc. And then you even have the bottom part, which is a broiler in there. All right, so again, tons of storage. Right? This is where we keep our cutlery and all of our utensils and whatnot. 2 more, even bigger ones. This is all an IKEA setup with a nice wooden countertop butcher block. And yeah, we've really enjoyed it. You know, it's really with a heavy heart that we put this up for sale, because it's my wife's station for work, by the way. Nice little Yoshi eating the apple. That's cute. Yeah, we just decided to move back home and wanted to live this off-grid, sustainable life, and very cool if you're into that too. So hopefully you're a like-minded person and we can make a transaction happen if it makes sense. So let me show you. That's the circular window we saw from outside. You have the shower head right there. I'm happy to actually just flip on the shower so you can see it. And that humming you hear is the water pump. And it works just like that. You have your shower curtain, of course, right? And that strings all the way across, as you would imagine. You have your fan over here. I'm going to turn it on real quick. You hear that? Now we use the fan in here to double also as a vent for the tiny home to keep the humidity down also. So there you go. I think that 10 right there is the first transaction my wife made from her business, so it's pretty cool. This is the on-demand hot water heater, propane. And it's pretty cool because you can actually dial in the exact temperature that you want right there. It's set to Fahrenheit currently, but you can set it to Celsius if you want. And then it plugs in right down there. We just keep it unplugged because anytime you're trying to save power, you never know what's drawing any phantom current. So it's real simple. You just plug it right in and away you go. Now you see a bunch of wood shavings right there. If I can make this work. There we go. And the wood shavings go into the compost toilet. Now the compost toilet's very simple. All you do is you sit down and it works. I'm not going to show you the intricate details of it because it's currently not empty. But whether you're male, female, whatever, you just sit down and it works. So it's kind of a marvel. There's your toilet paper right there. Your sink is really nice. Of course, you have this nice mirror as well. Really proud of that mirror. Got a good deal on that. So you got your soap on the right there, and then underneath you have an under area. Again, more storage. Storage, and more storage. We were so paranoid when we first moved in here. We didn't think we'd have enough storage. So we had the house custom built, by the way, by Hummingbird Tiny Homes. Micro homes, I think they're called. And yeah, very cool. We got to do everything basically as we wanted. And again, it looks like not a typical house on the inside, which is really cool, meaning it's not a bunch of just sheetrock and perfect lines and all that stuff. So let's walk up to the loft. Now you have 4 awning type windows. There's 2 over there. Here's your clock. And you get 2 over there, of course, looking down into the living room area and kitchen. Oh, by the way, that's the couch. Now, those are the cushions that came with the couch. We're currently kind of using it as a storage space, but of course, with minimal effort, you could turn that into a really comfortable area. And I was even thinking that maybe at some point we would put our TV kind of right there. And so you could very much do that if you wanted. You could even install like a little kick out for your feet, and you guys could chill on the couch and watch some TV if you wanted. But for Sarah and I, what we do is we actually watch TV up here and notice that we like Star Wars, or at least I do. So this is where you enter, and we have our mattress just on the floor there, and we find that gives you a little bit more headroom. Now I'm going to pan kind of up here. This is about 3 feet from top to bottom, and if you prop a pillow up against the window, you can easily just kind of hang out here, watch whatever you want to watch, and it works quite well actually. So if you've never slept in a loft, it is just as it sounds. You can't stand up in 3 feet of space, of course. Let me actually turn off that light real quick, because I think it's better exposure. There you go. So you can kind of see what's going on up here. We have, that's the second air purifier that we have, because it's allergy season, you know. So we have the bed and some posters, of course. This is my wife's area over here where she keeps all of her stuff in a nice cubby area. We have all this space right there to walk around. Crawling around, that's what I mean. That's where we keep our clothes. Of course, you could button that up with something super tidy if you'd like. You know, there's many ways to make this look even more pro if you'd like to. That's our printer back there. These buckets you see are full of rock salt. We heard that that can help control humidity also. We haven't found them to be super effective, so I think we'll probably just get rid of them. But the dehumidifier is definitely the way to go for the humidity. There's a storage area down here. Storage, more storage. And that's kind of my storage area. And some toys, man, because you gotta have toys. And by the way, you can see a little bit of a shelf over there that we've installed. I actually installed this shelf as well. Surprise, surprise. But yeah, the more storage, the better we find. So that's pretty much it. Other than the details about how exactly the different systems work and all the specs on things, you kind of have a good sense of the water. Let me just show you where the water comes in. It's in the bathroom. This is where the water enters through the hot water system, and then it feeds right into the sink right there. Now that's the first entry of where the water comes in, and that we currently have controlled or filtered with an RV filter. So where the water comes in from, roughly over there outside from those buckets, roughly right here is where, underneath the house, is where the water pump is. The water pump then goes all the way over and roughly over here, and I'm not showing you this outside because we have the skirting on right now, and it helps control for humidity and temperature. It feeds into the house with a regular garden hose fitting. So the idea is that this is just like an RV. If you were at an RV site, it would hook up just like an RV would, except for the fact that you have gray water runoff just right into the ground instead of a holding tank. So then you have your RV filter where the water, right before the water enters into the house, and then you also have the water regulator right before, the pressure regulator right before the water filter itself. So the water is pressure regulated, then it's filtered, then it comes through there, the kitchen sink. Then it can also come through, obviously, the shower in there, so that's filtered water in the shower. And then just for even more precaution, we have a UV UV water filter down there before it comes out through the kitchen sink. So kitchen sink water is the safest water to drink, so that's the water that we drink. That little light tends to heat up the water a little bit. So what we do in lieu of that is we always keep a little bit of water in the fridge. So we always have cold water if we want it. Again, propane for the on-demand hot water right there. Propane for the stove. And you saw the propane outside, of course. And then propane for the heater that heats the entire home. Then you have the control for the heater right here. Now this is wired into the battery DC, meaning it's always working even if the inverter is off. Now so is the fridge. The fridge is a low power solar specific fridge. So it's, quote, always hooked up, but it uses so little power, it's incredible. We're really happy with that. So those have their own switches to turn them off, as you saw outside. What else? We did water, we talked about power, we talked about propane. I think that's it. If you guys have any questions, of course, let us know. Let me walk outside real quick. We're happy to answer those. Again, you're able to rent the land too. There's Sarah. Give us a wave, Sarah. Hello. And there's our dog Bella and the view. So yeah, let us know if you have any questions. You can rent the land for $450 pending a brief discussion with the landowners just to make sure it's the right fit. If you want to, of course, you can take the house elsewhere, and we're happy to discuss details with you. Thanks for watching the video. I know it's about 30 minutes. Sorry for that. And we'll talk soon. Thanks.